Welcome back, guys. As always, I'm with Timothy Mai. My name is Dr. Lucan. We're here off the couch with Psych Guys, and today we're going to talk about what most people call toxic relationships. Or what do you think about that label and how that really plays out?
Yeah, so it's kind of like a new term, new label nowadays, and you hear it come up a lot. Like,
everything's toxic now. I feel like.
Yeah, so I think first thing that we have to go down is the fact that there's so many labels nowadays, and I think it's like a lot of social media and a term starts to get thrown around, and then it kind of snowballs effect, and then everything is toxic this or toxic that, or it's a toxic person or toxic relationship. So we're going to talk about what people are calling toxic relationships, and like what does that actually mean, and that sort of thing. But I don't really love the term.
I don't like the term because it's, in my mind, it's kind of all or nothing, right? Even if you kind of step back a second, what does toxic mean? It just, to me, just bad for you, right?
All right, like it can kill you.
It could kill you. Like it could poison you, right? Something bad will happen to you if you, let's say, if you're talking about food, like if you ingest it.
Yeah.
Right. So to me, so then you're taking that idea and applying it to a relationship with two people. So then to me, it's if I'm just, the thing that comes to mind, like mushrooms, right? Some are poisonous, right? Some are fine, right? So sometimes you can get really sick or die or hallucinogenic. So right, you could have a lot of not great things happen if you're not prepared for it, or like very good for you kind of mushrooms, right? But no, it's, to me, it's kind of black and white. This one's you're going to get not feeling well. This one, you're probably going to get some nutrients and you're going to do well with it, right? So to me, again, this idea really invokes the concept of all or nothing. And to me, as a couples therapist, especially, that term toxic is toxic to me because like it's just not, I don't really see it that way. And I know before we jumped on, you had a really kind of a good point about how people even are aware or sometimes become aware if they're in this relationship.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we should kind of throw the term out, but we can't because everyone says it. So we're going to use the term, and I completely agree with you how it's all or nothing. So I think, what do people mean when they're talking about toxic relationships? Well, from what I've heard and what I think, it's really just a relationship where there's a system that's functioning really poorly.
Right.
We know, you and I are both trained in EFT, and we both work with couples, and we know that really all of it kind of boils down to the cycle that a couple finds themselves in. We could talk for probably years about different cycles and that sort of thing. But really, I would say that it's that cycle or that dynamic that's toxic, right? In reality. Right. Most of the time what you hear, though, is a person in the relationship saying that their partner is toxic.
Right.
Or a lot of times what you hear is like a third-party person will be telling the couple or a person in the relationship that the relationship is toxic.
Like, how would that play out? Do you have like something that comes to mind? Like how would a person in the relationship, who's probably to some point maybe either in denial, right, doesn't see it, or sees it but feels powerless, or feels like they can't really change it? Like how would they find out that they might be in this relationship?
I think it's most of the time like their friends and their family.
Right.
Saying, oh, I don't really...
Oh, so you mean like Dr. Google and social media? Is that what you
mean? that too. I honestly, we probably should have done this before. I'm sure you can go on Google right now and type in the signs of a toxic relationship, and then there will probably be an article with like 10 signs or 10 red flags or something that, right?
I'm sure.
Which, whatever, I'm going to leave that one alone. But yeah, I think people, might find themselves in the quote unquote toxic relationship, and it's their friends or their family members who say, oh, this person's so bad for you, this relationship's so toxic, yada, 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 all that sort of stuff, which then can maybe, bring to light a little bit of the poor dynamic that they're in.
Right.
So I think that something like that needs to happen, or it's sort of like after the fact in the relationship, they look back and say, oh my gosh, that relationship was so toxic. I hear
you. It's just my sort of, I say pet peeve, but my thing is when people say that, so when two people are in a relationship, be it in the beginning, long-term, whatever the case, and they are, it's a good, informed.
Yeah.
Be it through social media, Dr. Google, family, friends, other jealous partners, that they are in this toxic relationship. And if that person is open to hearing it, one of them at least, then to me, the issue becomes, isn't that they're seeing it as a toxic relationship, which I like what you said before. It's a dynamic.
Yeah.
They see it that, oh, that person that I'm with is toxic for me.
Yep.
So that's my biggest concern. It's rarely do I hear you're in a toxic relationship, and let's say a best friend of let's say a husband, right?
Mm-hmm.
And says, oh wow, it seems like all these things are not going well, and here's an article about 5 red flags, 23 and a half red flags about how you're in a terrible toxic relationship. To me, that conversation, the gentleman, let's say, from that conversation in the marriage, usually doesn't walk away like, I wonder how I contributed to this toxic relationship. I think it's like, oh, my wife is a bitch. That's what I'm taking away. It's like, she's a problem here, she's a problem here, she's a problem there. And then it's like, then it's not relationship is toxic, it's the other person is toxic, right? You see how easy it is, in my mind at least, to go from, and I've seen this thousands of times, from a toxic relationship, which might be true, right? I like the way you said it, just bad for the two people, but that's not really how often it's heard. It's heard the other person is the problem. I'm now the victim. Now I need to get out. Now I don't want to be in this relationship. My spiel has always been, whoa. Maybe, I agree, maybe this marriage doesn't work or this relationship doesn't work. Mm-hmm. I get it. However, before making any decisions about what you're going to do, let's look at yourself. And if it's a toxic relationship implies two people.
Yep.
How is that playing out, and what are you contributing to the issue? And even to me, like most people say, oh, you're blaming the victim. I'm not blaming the victim. I'm just trying to see if the person can acknowledge how they contribute. And that does not mean that the relationship works. Like, I work with couples a lot of times. Not every marriage works. I'm not suggesting that. However, I am suggesting that before making a monumental decision, you may want to look at yourself, how you contribute to this toxic relationship, and take ownership of how you contribute to it. It's so easy to blame the other person. It's so easy to mislabel toxic relationship as a toxic person. Mm-hmm. And then even if marriage doesn't work, I mean, again, I've seen people from one marriage, 2 marriages across many years, right? Then they bring the same problems to the next relationship. There's a reason why divorce rate goes up, not down, after the first one. Most people, when I say this to people, they're like, wait, what? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it goes up, not down. You know why? Because the issue is that you never learned anything from the relationship. Now, your triggers for the same dynamic are lower, right? Because if you were in a relationship and you call it toxic, when the person, deprioritizes you, right? And you finally leave. If you get another person and you haven't changed, and that person is deprioritizing you, you're gonna have a much bigger trigger right away.
Yep, because you have all that baggage.
You have that baggage, right? So the likelihood that you'll get divorced second time is much higher, because your level of trigger is so much higher because of all the baggage that you're bringing into it. So yeah, to save you all that trouble, it is maybe an unpopular opinion, but you got to look at yourself.
Yep.
You want to call it blame the victim, you want to call it whatever you want. Again, another term I do not like. But you got to take ownership of how this toxic relationship plays out.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And so many couples come in, right, and right in the beginning, there's so much finger pointing.
Right.
Well, if you just stop doing this, then I wouldn't feel that way. Or if you would finally do this, or I say it all the time and you never get it, right? All the attention is directed at the other. And the same thing for the other person too. And nobody is looking in the mirror. Right. It's almost like if I could put 2 mirrors in front of them instead of them looking at each other and have them look at themselves. Right. That's really how things start to change. Right. But when folks are in this mindset that they're in this toxic relationship, and then therefore, it can't be me. Right. I think that's all of our natural automatic thoughts. Right. So it's of course them, and then we hyper focus on their things and their issues. The same thing's happening to us. It creates a terrible dynamic, and maybe we could say that dynamic is toxic.
It's a really good point.
That dynamic of not being able to look at how what I do influences you and how you feel, or my inability to understand your emotions when you're blah, 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 blah. Like, that's the actual problem. Right. And that could be a really hard, I think that's one of the biggest challenges in the beginning of couples work, to get people out of that maladaptive cycle and into a better one when they're actually communicating appropriately, looking at themselves and taking care of the other.
Right. No, for sure. And just the thing, it's just like chuckling to myself. Another pet peeve I have is that sometimes what happens is that, so when two people are, I don't know, either in couples therapy or just maybe individually in therapy, maybe not in couples, or both, sometimes one person who's considering the relationship to be toxic, or that's meaning that they think the other person is toxic, what they do in therapy, in their supposedly their own therapy, is just analyzing with their therapist their partner, and then coming back into couples, my therapist and I talk, and I think the reason why you're like this is because of blah 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 issue that you have, and that drives me insane. I don't have any hair, but if I did, I'd start pulling it out, because it's wait a second, you're going to therapy for your own benefit, supposedly, and what you're doing, and the other therapist is colluding with you about digesting and analyzing the person that you're with. That's going to go very far.
Who the individual therapist does not know.
Well, no, I'm not blaming the individual, but so the conversations are about, well, we want to understand, we want to get a better sense of how the other person is messed up, so that if we could fix him or her, then you will be fine. Like, you see how that's such passive, not you, I mean, just how passive it is to be able to do it like that, instead of saying, like, maybe I got to look at myself a little bit more and look at some hard truths that how I contribute.
Yeah, so what that sounds like is, let's say a wife comes into couples therapy and they say, my individual therapist thinks that he's a narcissist.
Right.
And I think that that's what needs to change here.
Right.
And then we say, well, maybe, but I don't know. Who cares about that? Right. We have to look at ourselves and the dynamic and all of that sort of stuff, right? So, so really, it's just. And my hope is that anyone listening to this can just really just get away from that urge to automatically look at the other. Like, stop labeling the relationship as toxic. Stop looking at only the other person's behaviors. Look at the dynamic. It always takes two to tango. Look at what you're doing, and look at what you're doing that affects the other person, and then be able to be with the person in what they feel and how they feel.
Right.
And that's just completely opposite on how people normally walk in.
100%, because it's sort of, and to me, it's a hard thing to do. I don't want to make it sound like it's an easy thing to do. It's a hard thing to do. But you are even individually so much better for it, even if the relationship doesn't work. Like, that's what I think most people don't get. I'm not saying that if you look at yourself, then all of a sudden the relationship is perfect. No, the relationship still may not work, and the other person may not want to change. And maybe they are a narcissist. The issue to me isn't that you spending individual 20 years in therapy realizing that you're with a partner who's narcissistic. That may be true. But I think the point is that it isn't that it's true or not true, but what are you doing? That to me, so all this analysis that gets you maybe even to the right answer. Most of the time it's wrong. But sometimes even if it's right, you're still so far away from benefiting from individual and couples work or just personal growth.
Yep.
And that to me is just so unfortunate. And I think sometimes where therapy gets its bad name is really in now, because I just find so many clinicians just collude with the problem because it may be easy or interesting or both, I don't know, but it's just like, that's not, like I read somewhere, if you're not feeling uncomfortable in therapy, something like if you feel like therapy is like with a friend or somebody who doesn't challenge you, then you're probably not growing, or something along those. I butchered it, but something like that, which it makes a lot of sense. I feel a lot of clinicians are becoming friends with their clients, and when you're friends with your client, like if you're a friend, like, you're not really going to challenge them, right? Like that's not your job to challenge, right? So to me, like that could get into like this weird dynamic that no one benefits from, and then you can't really do the necessary work for the person to improve. So
I couldn't agree with you more, and. If we wanted to have a full 45-minute discussion about that one, I could go off on that. But I'm just going to keep it short and simple. Couldn't agree with you more.
Right.
You are absolutely so right. I think so many therapists, they want to meet the person where they're at, empathize, align with them.
Right.
But then you're basically just empathizing and staying right on the same page and not getting anything done. And when you said that discomfort causes growth and change, you couldn't be more right.
Right. So guys out there, whoever is listening, just not saying that you may be in a toxic relationship or a bad one. That might be true. And you might be with a narcissist. Also very true. I think Tim and I are just imploring you to take a look at yourself and seeing how you contributed to the dynamic. And it's a hard truth. and sometimes the relationship still doesn't work. But again, you're better off of it, and hopefully even if the relationship doesn't work, hopefully you'll be part of the statistics that makes the second relationship stay and stick, rather than part of the larger statistic, which means the second marriages usually fail.
Mm-hmm. I think it's the best thing that you could do. And with all that being said, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, take care, guys. Bye.